In a world that rejected you, they would have shown mercy. At the inside of my own head, everything I wish I could say to you.
Nobody saw this coming. Not the reporters, not the residents of Moscow, Idaho, and certainly not the people who believed the Bryan Kohberger news was finally over. Because just when everyone thought the case had disappeared into history, a collection of sealed documents suddenly surfaced. Thousands of pages, private records, internal reports, witness statements, and details that were never supposed to reach the public. What those documents allegedly revealed has divided Moscow, Idaho like never before. Some people believe they expose a pattern of warning signs that should have been impossible to ignore. Others believe someone wants the public to see only part of the story. But here's where things get strange. Really strange, because buried inside those files were references to incidents that happened months before the tragedy at King Road House. Incidents that, according to several reports, raised concerns long before anyone realized what was coming. So why did nobody stop it? Why did nobody connect the dots? And why are people suddenly asking whether Bryan Kohberger was hiding in plain sight the entire time? Tonight, we're examining the documents that have sparked outrage across Moscow, Idaho, the reports, the warnings, the unanswered questions, and the details that have people wondering whether this news is far bigger than anyone originally imagined. Because the deeper you dig, the darker it gets. And trust me, we've only scratched the surface. The first thing people noticed was not what was inside the documents. It was who suddenly stopped talking. For months, the residents of Moscow, Idaho had heard the same thing. Case closed. Mystery solved. Move on. But after the sealed records appeared online, something changed. People who had once spoken confidently about the tragedy at King Road House suddenly became cautious, careful, nervous, and according to some residents, unusually quiet. That silence created a new question. What exactly had been discovered? The answer began with a collection of reports connected to Washington State University. At first glance, the records looked ordinary. Routine complaints, minor concerns, administrative paperwork, the kind of documents most people would ignore. But when independent researchers began reading through hundreds of pages, a pattern allegedly started to emerge. One incident became 2, 2 became 5, 5 became 13, and suddenly people were staring at a timeline that stretched back months before the tragedy. A timeline involving Bryan Kohberger. According to the reports, several individuals had documented interactions that left them feeling uneasy, not because of any single event, but because of repetition. The same behavior, the same concerns, the same uncomfortable observations, again and again and again. One report described someone standing silently outside an office longer than necessary. Another described conversations that continued long after they should have ended. A third claimed certain encounters felt strangely intense. By themselves, perhaps meaningless. Together, many people thought otherwise. Social media exploded. One post gained millions of views overnight. The caption was simple: how many warning signs does it take before someone pays attention? Nobody could stop talking about it. Meanwhile, another controversy was beginning to unfold, because the records didn't stop with university complaints. Far from it. The deeper researchers dug, the stranger the timeline became. Several entries referenced locations connected to Moscow, Idaho, places that would later become important to the investigation. Coffee shops, parking lots, apartment complexes, walking routes. None of these references proved wrongdoing, but they raised eyebrows. And in the world of internet speculation, raised eyebrows quickly become headlines. Within days, theories were everywhere, some reasonable, others completely outrageous. One creator claimed the entire town had ignored obvious warning signs. Another suggested certain people knew more than they admitted. A third claimed there were still undisclosed documents hidden from the public. Nobody knew what was true anymore, and that uncertainty only fueled the chaos. Then came the interviews. Former students began speaking publicly. Some described Bryan Kohberger as intelligent. Others described him as socially awkward. A few described encounters they found unsettling. What shocked viewers wasn't necessarily what was said. It was how similar many stories sounded. Different people, different locations, different times, yet strangely similar descriptions. The internet noticed immediately, and once people noticed, they couldn't stop talking about it. But just as public attention reached its highest point, another revelation surfaced, one that shifted the entire conversation. A collection of phone records, or at least what people claim were phone records. The documents appeared online late one evening. By morning, they were everywhere. Comment sections, podcasts, news blogs, video channels. Everyone seemed to be discussing the same thing. Repeated activity near areas connected to King Road House. The details were heavily debated. Some believed they meant nothing. Others insisted they changed everything. Arguments erupted across every platform imaginable. Friends argued. Families argued. Strangers argued. The entire internet seemed divided into two groups. People convinced they were looking at coincidence, and people convinced they were looking at something much bigger. But perhaps the most unsettling detail wasn't found in those records. It came from a completely different source. A statement attributed to someone who claimed to have observed Bryan Kohberger during the months leading up to the tragedy. The statement was brief, only a few sentences, yet it spread faster than anything else. According to the account, Ethan appeared different after a specific point in time. Quieter, more withdrawn, less interested in conversations, more isolated. Again, none of this proved anything. But when viewed alongside everything else, people couldn't help connecting the dots. Whether those dots actually belonged together became the subject of endless debate. Meanwhile, Moscow, Idaho itself was changing. Tourists arrived. Content creators arrived. Curious visitors arrived. The small town suddenly found itself at the center of a growing storm. Residents complained about strangers filming outside homes. Businesses reported customers discussing the case nonstop. Some people wanted answers. Others wanted attention, and some simply wanted the news to end. But the news refused to end, because every time one question seemed answered, three more appeared. Why were so many concerns documented? Why did nobody recognize the pattern sooner? Why were people only discovering these details now? And perhaps most importantly, was the public seeing the complete picture, or only the pieces someone wanted them to see? That question became impossible to ignore when another collection of documents surfaced. Documents that allegedly contained internal communications, messages, discussions, conversations. The content immediately became the center of speculation. People claimed the records revealed disagreements behind closed doors, disputes over decisions, disputes over priorities, disputes over what information should become public. Nobody could independently verify every claim. Yet that hardly mattered anymore. The news had developed a life of its own. Every new rumor generated headlines. Every headline generated reactions. Every reaction generated even more questions. And somewhere in the middle of all this chaos stood one name, Bryan Kohberger, the man at the center of the controversy, the man everyone was talking about, the man whose news seemed to become more complicated with every passing day. Because what was emerging from these documents wasn't just a timeline. It was a portrait filled with unanswered questions, questions that refused to disappear, questions that continued haunting Moscow, Idaho long after the official proceedings had ended. And as researchers continued digging through newly released material, one thing became clear. The biggest revelations might not be the ones already discovered. They might be the ones nobody had found yet. Because hidden somewhere inside thousands of pages, people believed there were still secrets waiting to be uncovered. And if that was true, everything was about to become far more complicated. What happened next is where the news stopped feeling like a mystery and started feeling like a warning. Because while the public was busy debating the newly surfaced records, another discovery quietly began circulating through Moscow, Idaho. At first, hardly anyone paid attention. It appeared on a small discussion forum. No major headlines, no television coverage, no dramatic announcements. Just a single claim. A claim suggesting that some of the most disturbing information had never been discussed publicly. Within hours, screenshots started spreading, then videos, then podcasts. And before long, everyone was asking the same question. What exactly was hidden inside those files? According to several independent researchers, one section stood out immediately: the behavior timeline. Not because it proved anything, but because of how detailed it appeared to be. Month after month, entry after entry, observation after observation. The timeline seemed to paint a picture of someone becoming increasingly isolated from the world around them. Some descriptions were ordinary, others were harder to ignore. One account described long periods of silence. Another described sudden mood shifts. Another claimed certain interactions became noticeably more intense over time. Separately, not unusual. Together, many viewers thought they were looking at something entirely different. And that's when the theories exploded. People began creating elaborate charts, connecting dates, comparing statements, looking for patterns, looking for meaning, looking for answers. The internet became obsessed. But then something even stranger happened. Several anonymous individuals suddenly emerged online, claiming they had known Bryan Kohberger before the tragedy. Nobody knew who they were. Nobody could verify every detail. Yet their stories spread like wildfire. One claimed Bryan Kohberger constantly analyzed other people. Another claimed he paid attention to details most people ignored. A third described conversations that allegedly left people feeling uncomfortable long after they ended. Again, none of it could be fully verified. Yet millions of viewers watched anyway, because controversy has a way of attracting attention. And this news was generating more controversy than anyone could remember. Meanwhile, residents of Moscow, Idaho were becoming increasingly frustrated. The town could not escape the story. Every street, every building, every familiar location suddenly carried a new meaning. Visitors arrived daily. Content creators filmed everywhere. People treated the town like a giant crime documentary. Residents complained that strangers were showing up simply to take photos and create theories. But the biggest controversy was still ahead, because according to reports circulating online, investigators had allegedly examined a series of movements connected to locations throughout Moscow, Idaho. The information immediately became the center of heated debate. Supporters of one theory believed it showed careful planning. Supporters of another theory insisted people were reaching conclusions without enough evidence. Neither side backed down. The arguments became louder, more emotional, more personal. Social media turned into a battlefield. Comment sections became war zones. Every new post created another fight. Every new theory created another controversy. And through it all, one question remained unanswered. Why? Why would any of this happen? Why would someone become the center of such a shocking story? What was the motive? The problem was simple. Nobody seemed to have a definitive answer. Some believed it was obsession. Others believed it was resentment. Others believed something entirely different. The lack of answers created a vacuum. And whenever a vacuum exists, speculation rushes in to fill it. That speculation reached another level when rumors began circulating about private communications. Messages, conversations, discussions allegedly taking place behind closed doors. The rumors suggested disagreements among people involved in handling different parts of the case. Some claimed important questions were never fully explored. Others claimed certain details remained hidden from public view. Whether those rumors were true hardly mattered anymore. People believed there was more to the story, and belief can sometimes become stronger than facts. As public interest continued growing, content creators started competing to uncover the next big revelation. Every day brought another video, another theory, another anonymous source, another shocking claim. One creator insisted there were still undiscovered files waiting to surface. Another suggested the public had only seen a fraction of the available information. Millions watched, millions argued, millions shared clips across every platform imaginable. The news became impossible to escape. But perhaps the most disturbing development involved the growing number of people who believed the warning signs had been visible all along. That idea spread faster than any theory before it. What if nobody missed the signs? What if the signs were noticed, but not taken seriously enough? That question struck a nerve. Suddenly, the discussion was no longer focused only on Bryan Kohberger. It expanded. People began asking larger questions. Questions about institutions. Questions about accountability. Questions about responsibility. Who should have acted? Who should have recognized a pattern? Who should have done more? Nobody seemed to agree, and that disagreement fueled even more controversy. Every answer created another argument. Every argument created another headline. Every headline brought even more attention. Meanwhile, the documents continued revealing new pieces of information. Some were minor, some were surprising, some generated immediate outrage. But together they created a picture that many people found difficult to ignore. A picture filled with uncertainty. A picture filled with unanswered questions. A picture that seemed to become darker the more closely people examined it. And then came the revelation that completely changed the conversation. Because hidden among thousands of pages was a detail that researchers initially overlooked. A detail that, once discovered, sent shockwaves through online communities. A detail that forced people to reconsider everything they thought they understood. The problem? Nobody could agree on what that detail actually meant. Some believed it was the missing piece. Others believed it was another misunderstanding. The debate became relentless. And as the arguments intensified, one thing became painfully clear. This news was no longer fading away. It was growing, becoming larger, stranger, more controversial, and far more unpredictable than anyone expected. Because the deeper people dug into the records, the more they realized they might only be seeing the beginning. And if that was true, the most explosive revelations might still be waiting in the shadows. By this point, most people believed they already knew the story. They thought the mystery had reached its conclusion. The documents had been released. The debates had happened. The headlines had come and gone. Case closed, right? Not exactly. Because while the public was focused on what had already been revealed, a different question quietly started spreading through Moscow, Idaho. A question nobody seemed able to answer. What if the biggest mystery was never Bryan Kohberger? What if the biggest mystery was everything surrounding him? The more people looked back, the stranger the timeline appeared. Small details, tiny inconsistencies, moments that seemed insignificant at first, yet somehow impossible to ignore now. Residents began revisiting old conversations, old memories, old observations. Things they once dismissed suddenly felt important. And that created a dangerous situation. Because once people start looking for hidden meaning, they usually find it, whether it's actually there or not. Soon, new theories started appearing faster than anyone could track them. Some claimed there were still unreleased documents. Others believed key information had never reached the public. A few even argued that the real news was buried beneath years of confusion, speculation, and competing narratives. Nobody could prove those claims. Yet millions continued discussing them. Why? Because uncertainty is powerful. People can accept an answer, but unanswered questions, those stay alive forever. And Moscow, Idaho was filled with unanswered questions. The controversy reached another level when online communities began comparing every statement ever made about the case. Every interview, every report, every public appearance, every timeline. Viewers searched for contradictions, searched for clues, searched for something everyone else had missed. The result was chaos. One theory replaced another, then another, then another, each one more dramatic than the last. And somehow the news kept growing. What shocked many observers wasn't the evidence. It was a reaction. Years later, people were still arguing, still debating, still searching, still refusing to let the news disappear. That alone told people something important. The public didn't feel satisfied. They didn't feel finished. They felt like pieces were missing. And whether that feeling was justified or not almost didn't matter anymore, because perception had become part of the story. Then came perhaps the most chilling realization of all. The tragedy at King Roadhouse wasn't the only thing people were talking about anymore. The conversation had expanded. It had become a discussion about warning signs, accountability, institutional failures, missed opportunities, and the uncomfortable possibility that some questions never received clear answers. That realization changed everything. Because suddenly this wasn't just one story. It was several stories happening at the same time. The news of Bryan Kohberger, the news of Moscow, Idaho, the news of people searching desperately for explanations, and the news of a community trying to understand something that may never fully make sense. Even today, debates continue. New viewers discover the case. New creators discuss the documents. New theories appear. The cycle repeats itself again and again. And perhaps that's why the news refuses to disappear. Not because people have all the answers, but because they don't. Because somewhere between the documents, the rumors, the questions, and the controversies, there remains a gap, a space where certainty should exist, but doesn't. Maybe one day that gap will finally be filled. Maybe new information will emerge. Maybe someone will provide the missing piece everyone has been searching for. Or maybe the mystery will remain exactly where it is now, suspended between fact and speculation, between answers and uncertainty, between what people know and what they desperately want to know. Because in Moscow, Idaho, one thing has become impossible to deny. The documents may have closed one chapter, but they opened another, and that chapter might be the most controversial one. Why so here we are, thousands of pages, countless debates, endless theories, and a controversy that refuses to disappear. But maybe the most shocking part of this entire news isn't what was found inside the documents. It's what still hasn't been explained. Because despite every report, every discussion, every argument, and every headline, people are still asking the same questions. What really happened behind the scenes? How many warning signs existed before everything changed? Were opportunities missed? Were important questions left unanswered? Or has the public simply become trapped inside a mystery that keeps growing larger every time new information appears? Because let's be honest, the deeper people dig into Moscow, Idaho, the stranger the news becomes. One document leads to another. One theory creates 10 more. One answer creates an entirely new set of questions. And somehow the conversation never ends. Maybe that's why millions remain fascinated. Not because they have certainty, but because they don't. Because somewhere inside this news there are still gaps, still mysteries, still moments that make people stop and ask, what are we missing? And now the question is yours. After everything you've seen, after every controversy, every warning sign, every rumor, every document, and every unanswered question, what do you believe really happened in Moscow, Idaho? Was Bryan Kohberger simply the center of a tragedy that shocked an entire community? Or is there still a bigger news hiding beneath the surface? Drop your theories in the comments below, because some of the most interesting discussions happen after the video ends. And if you enjoyed this investigation, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications, because we're only getting started. More documents, more mysteries, more controversies, and more shocking revelations are still ahead. Until next time, stay curious, stay skeptical, and remember, sometimes the biggest secrets aren't the ones people hide. They're the ones nobody notices until it's far too late.